Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Myrna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it. Are you a last-minute shopper like me? You know, the anxious feeling that the shelves will be empty and eye days are running low? Aura Frames is the solution with a gift that feels personal. Share photos and videos effortlessly, straight from your phone all year long. Every frame comes packaged in a premium gift box with no price tag because the best gifts don't sit on shelves, they sit in the heart. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off of Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named number one by Wirecutter, by using promo code TRANSFORM at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code TRANSFORM. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. You didn't find an excuse. You didn't say you had a headache or something, and because that's what happens. You're afraid and you conk out. But yeah, you did it anyway. So even though you're sweating and you're doing all these different things, that's what courage is. Yeah. So your book is about fear as your superpower.
Yeah.
So how did you use your fear as a superpower, and how can anyone else use their fear as a superpower?
Yeah. So I think, like, to answer that question at the most basic level, it's realizing what fear really is, and that it doesn't have to be this feeling that means we should stop. Like, it's not like fear equals stop. It's fear is just a data point. And often in modern times, it's
Do you
pretty
go by the acronym false evidence appearing real, or you have another acronym for it?
I have heard that that works great. That's accurate because it's rooted in our survival, right? Like, you go back to primitive times, we hear something rustling in the bushes, it's a saber-toothed tiger, we better be afraid because if we're not, we're gonna die.
Mhm.
But that is not happening to most of us on a daily basis, and it's interesting because in my background, I was actually at risk of physical harm, right? Which most people aren't. And so there were moments where fear did serve that primal purpose. And that's not really the fear that I'm talking about, though, because people will ask me about fear in my career. And I'm like, honestly, moments where I was really afraid in the cockpit, I could name them on like one hand. It was very rare.
Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Michelle Mace Curran. Michelle and I are going to be talking on the topic Fear as a Superpower. Reframe risk and step into your full potential. Welcome, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. All right, so let me give you guys a brief introduction. Michelle Mace Curran shattered barriers as a combat fighter pilot and only the second woman in history to fly as the lead solo pilot for the USAF Thunderbirds, a role reserved for the best of the best. Now she is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and LinkedIn top voice. She shares powerful lessons on confidence, leadership, and bold actions with audiences worldwide. Michelle has worked with leading brands like Microsoft, SpaceX, Boeing, and PwC, and has been featured on The Kelly Clarkson Show, CBS Evening News, and Glamour. Through her newly released book, The Flip Side: How to Invert Your Perspective and Turn Fear into Your Superpower, she equips women with the mindset and strategies to push past self-doubt, embrace boldness, and lead authentically. Wow. Yes. Yes. You are a brave. I've been I've always loved the word courage, and one of my favorite scriptures is Exodus about being courageous. And I've always embraced courage and being courageous. So I know that in a world of, courage, that it takes a lot of courage for you to aspire to become a fighter pilot. So as we set the table for a conversation today, Michelle, what led you to become a fighter pilot? I understand you have a story about nearly blacking out mid-flight, and that revealed your resilience and your mental toughness. So we can talk about that as well in your story.
Yeah, no, that's a whole lot of stuff in one question, but I'll start with the beginning, right? Like, people are always like, how did you even find your way into this? Because I am a self-identified shy kid, introvert as an adult, and I struggle with self-doubt a lot, which is one of the things I talk about now. So people are like, okay, I get that, but how did you connect those dots to become a Thunderbird pilot, fighter pilot? So I was a good student. I've always been super goal driven, a little bit of a thrill seeker. So I loved roller coasters. I loved adventure growing up. And basically, I needed a way to pay for college. And Air Force ROTC kind of rose to the top as a great way to do that. The military just has awesome education benefits. So I grew up in a small town, no exposure to the military or to aviation really, but I got this college scholarship. I'm going off and I'm going to be in the Air Force. But at that point, I plan on being a criminal justice major because I want to do 4 years in the Air Force to pay back my scholarship, get out, and become an FBI agent. That's the whole goal.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay.
Obviously, we took a pivot. So I like to tell this story because I think there's a lot of things to learn from it. So I'm halfway through college in ROTC, a criminal justice major. We visit a base and I get to see two fighter jets take off in full afterburner right in front of me for the very first time. And I am just awestruck.
Blown away. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Goosebumps. Just like, forget the FBI. Like, how do I go do that?
Wow.
And then I think you talk about courage, and I've never considered myself a really brave or courageous person, even though people say that all the time, especially while I was flying air shows. But I think about there were a few key moments where I had that spark of inspiration and I just like felt it in my gut, like I want this thing so bad.
Mhm.
And maybe it was being young and naive and not really knowing what that meant or not realizing how much work had to go into actually making that possible. But I was like, we're doing this. And so I decided to take action for that, like one moment of courage that was required to, the year after that.
Sign the papers, right?
Right. They're like, who wants to be a fighter pilot or not even a fighter pilot? Who wants to compete to be a pilot here? And that was enough for me to raise my hand, put my name in the hat, and I ended up getting a pilot slot, going off to training. And then a whole lot more had to go into actually becoming a fighter pilot. It's very competitive. There were only 2 spots for my class of 25 students.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a lot of work, a lot of learning because I had no prior aviation experience. I was a degree that did not really translate to being anything useful in the cockpit. So we always joke it's like drinking from a fire hose.
Mhm.
There's just so much onslaught of information, but I worked my butt off. I had that singular goal of becoming a fighter pilot. And at the end of that program, I ended up being able to get that second spot and go on to fly the F-16.
All right. In your 25 group, how many were women?
Just me. One.
You were kidding me. Huh. Wow. So did you have to fight gender bias or, that one of my favorite movies is the movie with Demi Moore, being in the army and having to be like a man.
Yeah,
Did you have to put on those airs? Do you have to, you know, say, hey, I got a dick too kind of thing?
to some extent. Yeah, like you joke, but I mean, for real. It
Yeah.
it was one of those things, when I first had that moment of inspiration, decided that was my dream. I didn't really think anything about gender. I was just like, this is what I want. Then I get there and I'm in pilot training. And honestly, my class was amazing. We were super tight. We hung out all the time. There were a few like little things that would be said initially, but they weren't negative, but they were like, with some hindsight, some things that still made it clear that there's kind of a double standard. Like, we would be out, in a social setting at a bar on a Friday night, much like all the military movies you see.
Yeah, all right.
I hear one of the guys, sorry to screw up. It is. We work hard, play hard, that's for sure. Especially at that age, right? We're fresh out of college, so we're in our early 20s. So one of the guys from my class who I was really good friends with, I overheard him having a conversation from a guy that was in another student training class. And they were talking about me, and the other guy was like, "Oh, you have a chick in your class. Like, how is that?" And my friend was like, "Well, luckily she's super cool." So it was like, "Oh, well, thank you." But also the fact that it's like, "Oh, does she cause problems?" Like, that other guy was like testing the waters to see. And I wasn't offended by overhearing that conversation. It was just like a data point. And then one that really
Mind
sticks
being
out,
called a chick? 'Cause that's disrespectful too.
it was so normal in the military then that I didn't bat an eye at it. Now I don't love it, I will be honest. Like, and no one really calls me like a chick anymore at this point. But like, when you're like young and in that environment, there's so many things in the military, like swearing, right? It's pretty normal in a lot of the different ranks. And you're just like, this is how it is here. You're kind of used to it. And it's not a big deal in the moment. But like later on, you're like, I mean, we're like the primary fighting force for the United States of America. We probably would sound more intelligent if we weren't dropping the F-bomb every sentence. But
Yeah.
like, as a comparable example. So the one that really stuck out, though, as the first time in my entire career where it was highlighted in a way that did offend me, is we were at the end of that class. We're competing for those fighter jet spots. There are more of us that want them than we know will be able to get them. Like, anywhere from 1 to 3 spots were going to be available. And so I'm sitting at a table. It's the last few weeks of the course. I'm studying with a classmate. And both of us have our last check ride of the program that week. And check rides, there's like 4 or 5 of them throughout the entire year. And they are like these big airborne tests. So how you do on those puts a lot of weight on your overall ranking. So there's a lot of pressure. So we know, just based on kind of knowing how everyone's doing throughout the year, that there's one guy in our class that has just crushed it. He's definitely going to be first. And it's between myself and my classmate that I'm studying with for second and third. And being second versus third could very likely determine who goes and flies the fighter jet versus who goes and flies like a cargo aircraft. We both want a fighter. So we're studying, and I think he struggled with a couple of questions and he was getting frustrated. And I was an easy target because I'm sitting there. And he's like, I don't even know why I'm wasting my time. They're just going to give you the fighter to check the box. And I was so caught off guard and honestly just like kind of bewildered by the whole thing, because I had worked so hard in that course and I had done really well. And I knew that there was no box checking happening. And in the moment, I didn't defend myself. I was young, did not have that confidence. I kind of was just like, okay, and went on to the next question we were practicing. Now it would be a much different story. But what I did do, like when I went home that night in preparation for my check ride the next day, I was kind of like this resolve set in. I was like, okay, watch me. I was like, I'm going to have the best check ride I've ever had in this program. And there's going to be no doubt that I deserve whatever.
Sure. Not checking boxes. Wow. Yeah.
And I ended up following through on that. It was like one of the best flights I had in that entire year. I got such a good score. My instructor was like, well, I don't know what, you just crushed that. Whatever preparation you did, keep doing it.
Good for you.
Like, apparently he just has to insult me. And he did fine, but he did not do as well as I did. And I ended up getting a fighter and he didn't. So we ended up being second and third.
Oh, he got third. Wow.
And so there's like, I didn't like bask in the justice of that, right? It wasn't like, haha, see? It was more just like me feeling really proud because I knew I deserved what I got, because I had worked my butt off and I had performed under a ton of stress and pressure and went off to fly F-16s from there.
Are you a last minute shopper like me? You know, the anxious feeling that the shelves will be empty and ideas are running low? Aura Frames is the solution with a gift that feels personal. Have you ever done the frantic Christmas Eve shopping run? I'm here to save you. Gift your loved ones an Aura Frame. You can preload photos before it ships so your gift is ready the moment it's turned on. Keep adding photos from anywhere, anytime. Just download the Aura app and connect to Wi Fi. Share photos and videos effortlessly, straight from your phone all year long. Every frame comes packaged in a premium gift box with no price tag because the best gifts don't sit on shelves, they sit in the hearts. For a limited time, save them the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off of Aura's best-selling Carver matte frame, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code TRANSFORM at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code TRANSFORM. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. So order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Are you running a business online? Then instantly build a trust with your customers with a domain and matching professional email from GoDaddy so people know you mean business. And there's never been a better time. Visit godaddy.com/GDNOW and you can get a domain and professional email plan for just 99 cents a month for 1 year. That's a little price for a lot of credibility. Choose the domain that's right for you and a professional email to match. Go to godaddy.com/GDNOW and look legit. That's GODADY.com/GDNOW. New customer purchases only. Products auto renews separately. See terms on site. Yeah. Well, that's not our conversation today, but that's a great story and great lessons and women that, think that people are hiring them because they're checking the boxes. I've just had a conversation about DEI, how it affects, the other race other than the Black race. And yes, I mean, but I'm glad what you said. You put into work. And a lot of times, even when you put into work, there is a gender bias. But
Yeah.
I'm glad that you got that job and you got it because of the fact that you did well on your flight and check those boxes and not the oh, we got to give a woman the spot kind of thing. So yeah, but I know that the Army, from movies again, because I have no personal reference, are always in the same, which is why the movie G.I. Jane was made, because there's a lot of gender biases. There's a lot of stuff that's in the Army and, you know, how they feel about women, how they feel about a whole bunch of people. So I guess, being you probably removed from it a little bit because you're now like a maverick.
Yeah.
and not in the trenches.
Yep. No, that's valid.
Top guy, right?
There's definitely some privilege that comes with being an officer, first of all, and then also a fighter pilot. You
Yes.
do get to be a little bit sheltered from some of the stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
But it's still there. It's from your peers, so they're an equal to you, and so it's just happening
Right.
at a different level.
Right.
And it does
Right.
get weeded out as people get into the higher ranks. I think there's more focus on professionalism
Mhm.
and like kind of the boys will be boys locker room type stuff goes away, luckily. But when I was in the early part of my career, that was alive and well. And often it wasn't directed at me. I mean, it was rarely directed at me. But it still is one of those things that constantly highlights that you don't quite belong in the environment and you become just hyper aware of it. And
Yep.
it's coming from people that are my friends and it's coming from people that we trust our lives with each other in the air. And so there's this weird contrast of like competing things where you feel loyal to these people and you want to be part of this group so bad and you want to go with the flow and be one of the guys and just fit in. but you also feel like you need to be authentic and you need to uphold your values. And if you let something go that's offensive to women just to fly under the radar and find belonging at any cost, then you're setting the next woman up that follows in your footsteps for failure. And so there's this competition between those two things all the time, and it's exhausting.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, this is a great conversation. And we're talking about fighter pilots, but it could be in any environment that is in a male-dominated world. So great. So you also talk about, and that's part of the first question I asked you.
Yeah. Sorry to be got.
No, that's all right. I don't know why I combined them, but yeah, tell us about the time. Was it when you were a fighter pilot per se, or when you were in training that you nearly blacked out mid-flight and learned about resilience and mental toughness?
Yeah, so this was a pretty transformative single flight in my whole career. So I had just gotten to my first operational combat squadron. So I had gone through pilot training that we talked about, gone off to a year-long F-16 training to learn to fly the jet, and now I am at a frontline squadron. And so I've been going through all of these training programs and I've been working really hard, but I've been doing pretty well in them. And so they always had very clear goals, very clear like grading criteria. And I operate in that kind of environment really well, where it's like, here is a structured path to success. And all I have to do is put the work in and it's laid out. Now I get there and everyone around me are experienced fighter pilots. I'm the youngest person, least experienced person in the squadron for a little while before the next person shows up. And it becomes very clear that flying a fighter jet is about so much more than flying the jet. It's about just like massive task management and planning ahead and situational awareness and monitoring sensors. And there's just so much to know and so much to do. And it's all happening so fast that it will take you likely years to get decent at it. And so that's already like a shock. Like, I've always been good at stuff. I've always known how to be good at stuff. And if I'm not instantly good at something, if I'm just average because I'm learning, like who even am I, right? So that's going on. And then quickly, my second flight in country. So I have literally been in Japan, which is where this unit was, for maybe 2 weeks. I'd just gotten there. I'm flying my second flight, and for movies are a great reference for this because everyone and their mother has seen Top Gun.
Yeah, right.
Right. So all three of them. Oh, like everyone has seen original, they've seen Maverick, and so they have some context. So we're going out on a training flight. So I'm in my jet by myself. My instructor is in his jet, and our whole goal is to do dog fighting. So it's one aircraft versus another, and my whole goal is to get his aircraft in front of the nose of mine so I can gun him. And I know this all sounds aggressive. It's just a training flight, so we don't have any live weapons loaded up. It's just like practice.
Right.
But things still happen at about 500 miles an hour. The jet can still pull 9 times the force of gravity, which we would say is 9 Gs, is how we abbreviate it. So however much you weigh, multiply that by 9. That's what you're going to feel like pushed down into that seat. So that's an aggressive environment to learn in. So we go out, I start the fight. I've done this a couple of times in F-16 training, but there's just a few different things in this scenario that I don't take into account because I am very young and inexperienced. And so I do the exact like robotic things I learned in training, but in a situation where they didn't necessarily make sense. And what that led to was me accidentally going supersonic, so above the speed of sound.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, didn't even recognize it was happening airborne because nothing exciting happens inside the jet when you go supersonic. The speed indicator just, ticks up and you see it pass. But if you're not looking for that, it can get away from you and you can accidentally go too fast. So I do that. And then I roll and I pull back on the stick because I'm, again, trying to turn and point at the other aircraft. I hit 9 Gs. That's expected. But normally, as you start to turn, you'll only maintain 9 Gs for a handful of seconds. And the jet loses energy as it turns. And so it slows down some. The Gs decrease. And you're able to tolerate them a little bit better. But because I'm going so fast and I don't realize it, I roll and I pull, and there is no way I can ever turn tight enough to point at my instructor. So I literally have zero chance of winning the fight. But also because the aircraft has so much energy on it, I hit 9 Gs and then I end up holding it for a full 360-degree turn, which we're talking more like 20 seconds, which is a long time. Because what happens under 9 Gs or any high G force is the blood gets pushed out of your head because the force is going from your head towards your feet. And your heart is only so strong to push that back up. And so at a certain point, you're at a high risk of a G-induced loss of consciousness, which we refer to as a G-lock. And that's what you reference when someone passes out in the aircraft. And so in that turn, I'm fighting to stay awake and I'm just starting to get tired and I'm not really understanding why this is happening, like why it's so difficult, why I'm not able to point at my instructor. So I just keep pulling. I'm like, surely I'm going to get there. And I get full gray out first, so you lose your color vision. And then you start to get tunnel vision. And then quickly I have full blackout. So I can't see anything, but I'm still conscious. I'm still aware of what's happening and I can still hear. And my instructor ends up, as he's watching me, he's like, what is she doing? She should be pointing at me. She's not. Like, something's wrong.
Something's wrong, right?
So he makes a radio call to end our fight. And I hear that. And despite having full light loss, I pull back on the throttle and I start slowing down. The G's drop and my vision comes back. So I don't pass out, but I am about as close as you could possibly get to a G-lock. And A, I wasn't going to win, but B, I'm the only pilot in that $30 million fighter jet. And if I'm asleep, if I'm blacked out, no one is flying it. And that mistake in those exact type of situations has led to G-locks in other pilots in the past, and some have hit the ground because of it.
Oh my goodness.
And so it was, honestly, the first thing I felt was embarrassment because I failed the mission, right? I wasn't able to gun my instructor, which was the whole goal that day. So I was like so concerned about my performance and like showing everyone that I was good enough that I deserved to be there. Like I felt like I had to prove myself.
Yeah.
But then secondary, we go in our debrief, we watch the recordings from the cockpit. I see how fast I get, that I'm supersonic. I realize what's happening. My instructor is in there with me and we're listening to our tapes and watching. And you can hear me doing a G strain, which is like this pressure breathing that we do where we do these little air exchanges every 3 seconds. It helps with keeping that blood up in your head. And it starts off fine. And then it starts to get like a little sporadic and a little bit weak sounding. And he's like, are you experiencing light loss right there? Are you close to a G-lock? And at the end of that debrief, he's like, if you keep flying it like that, you are going to kill yourself. He like looks at me and says that. And that was kind of the wake up call moment where I was like, this business that I've decided to pursue is serious, right? Like it has high repercussions.
Yeah.
And that combination of feeling embarrassed, like I didn't deserve to be there. And like this, I just pointed out that I wasn't equipped for this job, with the like fear of actual physical harm, just sent me down this spiral of imposter syndrome and self-doubt. And then you combine that with the gender stuff we talked about.
Yeah.
And trying to prove myself in this very competitive type A world where belonging is so important and I inherently didn't belong. Like it was just the perfect scenario to struggle. And I definitely did.
Okay. So how did you gain the mental toughness to fight this imposter syndrome and belong?
It took a lot of time, honestly. I always think people want me to have this answer where I'm like, but then the next week I realized this and I like was ready.
I'm a coach, so I know it doesn't go that fast.
No, and I think I get asked a lot, like, what advice would you give to women in like really heavily male dominated careers that might face some of those same feelings? And I'm like, the unsexy answer is that some of it comes from just gaining competence in your job. Like some of it comes from just focusing on that. And as you show yourself that you are capable and you get better at the craft, the confidence will follow. Like you don't get to have the confidence right out the gate.
No.
But acknowledging that
you're tell yourself that, because you just explained to me perfectly that you're only there for 2 weeks. You've never flown this. So why did you feel like an imposter when you're clearly learning?
Are you going through menopause and struggling with your mental well-being? Are you exhausted and just not enjoying life the way you used to? Sound familiar? The new innovative Hypno Method app helps you find a sanctuary of soulful calm when everything feels too much. Using proven hypnosis, it helps you quiet your mind, ease tension, and sleep more easily, so you can feel calmer, think more clearly, and start to feel like you again. Whether you're using HRT or exploring natural options, the Hypno Method app helps you discover natural ways to support your mind and mood through menopause and beyond. And if someone you love is struggling, show them the Hypno Method app. It could help them relax, smile, and enjoy their life again too. Start your free 7-day trial today. Visit hypnomethod.co.uk/transform. hypnomethod.co.uk/transform.
I was not willing to give myself the grace to be a beginner. And it's so obvious, right? Like with hindsight, with all the wisdom I've gained in the 15 years plus since that happened. But when I was in the thick of it, just like the denial of this contrast of trusting everyone is better than you and everyone knows more than you do, and like never being willing to give yourself the benefit of the doubt that you did well at something or that you are a beginner and you deserve grace. And it's funny though, because you'll die on that hill all day, but then when someone that you respect, that you think is so much better and smarter than you, gives you a compliment, you're like, oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. So it's like you pick and choose this confirmation bias to serve this narrative that you're not cut out to be there. And so one of the things I tell people all the time is like, you have to be able to zoom out and recognize where you're at, that you are a beginner. You are in an environment with high standards that is objectively difficult. It would be insane for you to show up and be good at it on day one.
Exactly.
Like, that's just not going to happen.
Right. And I'm pretty sure that a man wouldn't have that same response. I think, again, what that gentleman said to you or your friend, that they're checking the box, probably stuck with you. And on some level, you felt it. And that's why you always had to prove yourself.
For sure. I always felt like I had to overcompensate.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be average because that would indicate that I didn't deserve to be there. I had to be above average.
Exactly.
And if I wasn't, like, how dare I pursue something like this?
Right, exactly. And that's where basically that's coming from. So I'm sure there's a good end to the story. After being there for how long? How long did it take you to feel comfortable and not think that you were an imposter?
I think it ebbed and flowed, but honestly, that entire assignment, which I was in Japan for 3 years, which is a long time, I struggled with that. You know, there were moments when I would go through some sort of upgrade where I was learning to be like a flight lead, for example, and it would be all these graded flights and a lot of pressure. And then you would get through it and you would pass, and they'd be like, congratulations, you are now a flight lead. And I would feel the excitement around that, like, heck yeah, like I made it. But then you're quickly on to the next thing, and now you're leading a group of 4 jets out there, and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I was very quick.
Wow.
To
They don't give you any time to bask in your success, huh? Yeah, you learn something new tomorrow.
And then you got to go do it in like the highest stakes environment on earth, right? So you were
Did
never
you ever be in real combat? Obviously.
not on that assignment, but on the next one, I went to Afghanistan.
And
So
actually drop some bombs.
The second assignment, yes, I got to deploy and do the actual mission. And
Oh, that's beautiful.
I think the timing of that, so my squadron deployed when I was a young wingman, so maybe a year and a half into my time in Japan. but they wanted me to go through that upgrade to become a flight lead. And so instead of taking me on that deployment, they did a swap with the other F-16 squadron on the base, sent one of their guys in my place who was already an experienced flight lead, left me behind to work with that squadron to become a flight lead, which totally made sense. And honestly, I think had I gone on that deployment, I think I would have struggled with the pressure and the belief in myself and all the things. And so I didn't end up deploying for the first time until 2 years later.
Wow. Yes.
And
when you were ready.
it
Yes.
actually worked out great because, of course, I still felt nervous. Of course, I was doing this in the real world for the first time, and there's so much pressure. But I also felt like I had the competence and the tools to do it. And it didn't go perfectly, but I learned so much from it. And the whole entire deployment overall went well. And it really gave me such a vote of confidence in myself that I could actually
course.
do it for real. And so,
Goodness.
yeah, that was one of the key things that
Yeah.
led to kind of the comeback of just belief in my own ability.
I know. My goodness. And I'm glad how you set this up. Like, you might thinking that it looks beautiful and you just go in there and you're like we're watching the Magritte movie, but you're talking about how many things you have to be aware of, right? And you can't be a robot. And yeah, and the G forces and the turning and the shooting and all these different things. So yes, there's a lot of things to master. And it's not just all glory. So yeah, I mean, you should definitely have a vote of confidence in yourself that you're able to do it. Wow, that takes a lot of brain power. That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of everything. So, I mean, so on the other side of that, you came out of no imposter syndrome, um, uh, confidence, no self doubt. So you're on top of the world because you climbed the mountain, right? And you got to the top and you climbed it by yourself. So that is beautiful. A beautiful story for anyone that's listening that have to face some challenges and don't think that they're good enough. Because yeah, if you put in the work and you have a goal, I like what you said. You had that goal and you go after your goals and your dreams. There's something that's driving you. There's something from the inside that's pushing you towards it. That is beautiful. I wouldn't even go as far as to say it's purpose, because I'm not quite sure how you can come into the world to be a fighter pilot.
Right.
But normally when you feel that the stuff that you felt the first time you saw it is normally what your purpose is. It's in the pit of your belly and there's something that starts it. They call it a fire starter. So I don't want to go into purpose, but how did you get the name Mace?
Well, this is good because I told the story already. So it was from that flight where I went supersonic and I almost G-locked. So sometimes it's a long story because it's so complicated, but I've already laid the groundwork for it. So
Right.
MACE is an acronym. It stands for Mach at Circle Entry, which is pilot jargon heavy, but basically Mach is the speed of sound, like Mach 1 is the speed of sound. So that's where the M comes from because I broke the Mach. And then at Circle Entry, that was just the maneuver. That's the name of the maneuver that I was trying to do to turn.
Right.
So Mach at Circle Entry. So it's interesting because that flight, which I associated a lot of shame with it on the backside, it gave me this call sign that I still go by at this point. And it's like it's on my book cover. My whole brand's built around it. And everyone's like, your call sign sounds so cool. Like, did you pepper spray someone or like, how did you get it? And when they first named me Mace, because you don't get to pick it, your squadron tells stories or things you messed up. And then they come up with a fun name to go with it. That sounds cool, but the story's never cool. So I get the name and honestly, I'm like, well, that's a cool call sign. But also I feel that like ickiness in the pit of my belly because I know I almost messed up at like a catastrophic level. And for quite a while, when people would ask me that story, I would tell them about the accidental supersonic part because I could be like, explain it with the Mace, like Mach at Circle Entry. I don't have to tell them the part where I almost G-locked because
I can't understand anyway.
well, like even other pilots, like push out means
To the other pilots,
where
right.
you might hurt yourself or someone else is not cool. Like that is not approved of in our culture within a fighter squadron. So I could tell them the first part and they would be like, oh yeah, rookie mistake, that happens. But if I was to tell them the whole story of like, cool, yeah, that happened. And then I continued to push because I wanted to prove myself so badly to the point where I could have put myself at physical risk. Then it's like, oh, that's not so cool. Like, that's stupid. And I knew that was stupid. And so I had this shame for a long time. But there was kind of this point where I went through all this personal growth after Japan, and a lot of it was just making a decision that I wasn't going to live anymore, like playing dress up, pretending to be something I wasn't, knowing I wasn't living up to my potential because I was so afraid of failing in front of everyone. And I would like opportunities would come up and I'd be like, pick anyone but me because I don't want to put myself out there and have all these growth that would come with this opportunity. Because like I said, I'm so fixated on proving myself that felt like a massive risk of failing in front of everyone.
Wow.
And so I made a decision that I was going to stop living like that because I had a lot of regret, right? It's like missed opportunities when you know you're saying no to all these things you should be saying yes to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I moved to my next assignment in Texas. I start purposely recognizing those moments where it's opportunity. It's that feeling in my gut that I know I should do the thing. But on the other hand, it's fear and it's uncertainty and it's this feeling of vulnerability. And I got really good at identifying like the physiological response I would have in those moments and like being like, okay, pump the brakes. We're not going to let fear call the shots here. Like, what is our end game? We want to be good at our job. We want whatever. And the answer was almost always, okay, we're going to say yes, even though it's scary. And that was like maybe 6 months before that deployment that I started doing that, like very intentionally. And I did that for about 18 months and it completely changed me professionally, personally.
Yeah.
It's what gave me the courage to consider applying to the Thunderbirds. Like it changed everything. And somewhere in there, I realized that every single pilot in my squadron had a call sign, even the most respected ones, even the best pilots in the entire unit, the commander, whoever, every single person had a call sign that they wore on their chest and that we called them by. And all of those
Maverick, wasn't that his call sign?
Yep. And they don't tell you in the movie, but it came from like something dumb that they did almost always.
Right.
You know, you
Yeah.
gotta love.
Well, but it's really interesting. I know I find this conversation so interesting because I think that you have to have courage, which is what I started off with, to want to become a fighter pilot, to know that you're up there flying at supersonic speed and 500 miles an hour and I mean, all the things you have to learn, and it's obviously big training on that, and you're doing it, and yet you don't have the confidence. But before I forget, there's a book that I read, and I passed it on to my daughter that was from Rhonda Rhimes, and she called it The Year of Yes. And she did exactly what you did because she was, you know, feeling, again, not good enough and being scared of going outside her little home area. Some people have these anxiety, and she would say no to everything.
Yeah.
And then her sister said to her one day, "You say no to everything." And then she decided to start to say yes. And it actually changed her.
Yeah.
Because once you face that fear, right, you become a different person, right? Face the fear, but do it anyway. You become a different person. Yes. And her year of yes turned her around. So I'm glad that you're saying the same thing. Your 18 months of saying yes and doing the things that scared you allowed you to break free of whatever was holding you, because whatever is holding you is something unusual. And it could be, again, the female and a male gender role. It's probably what it is. But because you are an astonishing individual. I mean, there's not too many women that can walk in your shoes, and yet you didn't embrace it.
Yeah. And when I was with the Thunderbirds, I would land from an air show and having done these kind of death-defying maneuvers to the audience. And, I go to an autograph line and I would get to meet people. And almost every single show, someone would come up and be like, "You're so brave. I could never do that. You're so brave."
Quick.
And every single time I would be like, "I'm not brave. Like, I just worked really hard at this one skill. We just practice a lot. Like, that's the only thing."
It is
And
courage.
it's taken time. It's taken leaving the military and honestly, writing the book and sitting down and diving into all these experiences and like dissecting them and like really kind of separating what I learned from different things, because it all just gets muddled together when you're living it. That has been so helpful to realize that courage isn't courage if fear isn't there, right? Like if you feel no fear, then you're doing something that is probably well within your capability, that's not stretching you, and it's not courageous. Then you're just doing a thing.
It's true.
And so the fear had to be there. So they were right, because when they said you're so brave, I would be like, but I feel nervous all the time, or I feel scared all the time. I'm still nervous before we go do a flight, even though I've done
But you do it anyway. Exactly.
anyway.
You didn't find an excuse. You didn't say you had a headache or something, and because that's what happens. You're afraid, and you conk out. But yeah, you did it anyway. So even though you're sweating and you're doing all these different things, that's what courage is. Yeah. So yeah. So your book is about fear as your superpower.
Yeah.
So how did you use your fear as a superpower, and how can anyone else use their fear as a superpower?
Yeah. So I think, like, to answer that question at the most basic level, it's realizing what fear really is, and that it doesn't have to be this feeling that means we should stop. Like, it's not like fear equals stop. It's fear is just a data point. And often in modern times, it's
Do you
pretty
go by the acronym false evidence appearing real, or you have another acronym for it?
I have heard that that works great. That's accurate, because it's rooted in our survival, right? Like, you go back to primitive times, we hear something rustling in the bushes, it's a saber-toothed tiger, we better be afraid, because if we're not, we're going to die. But that is not happening to most of us on a daily basis. And it's interesting because in my background, I was actually at risk of physical harm, right? Which most people aren't. And so there were moments where fear did serve that primal purpose. And that's not really the fear that I'm talking about, though, because people will ask me about fear in my career. And I'm like, honestly, moments where I was really afraid in the cockpit, I could name them on like one hand. It was very rare. It was only when something went really wrong, really unexpected, which did not happen often. But what was more common was that fear of failure, that fear of judgment, that fear of not living up to expectations. And that is such a human experience. And I just get to talk about it through a very unique lens, but it's so relatable because we all experience that. And when you recognize, like, hey, okay, I feel this physiological feeling of fear, the stress response, like, what is it actually in relation to? Am I at risk of death? And likely not. Like, what's the worst case scenario? And like, when you get all that out of your head, you tell someone about it, you write it down, you lay out the things like, if I go take this risk to do this thing that I want, otherwise we wouldn't even be considering it. What is like the worst case? And people are always like focused on the optimism. And in the book, I talk about silver linings and all of the positive stuff. But I think there's so much value in laying out the worst case scenario, because I compare it to a kid who comes into your room in the middle of the night freaking out because there's a monster in the corner. And then you go in their room and you flip the light on and you're like, look, it's your teddy bear with a dirty t-shirt thrown on top of it. And then they're like, oh.
It's a pretty specific example.
I feel like it's a common one, right? It's the pile of dirty clothes every time. And they're like, oh, okay, you just shone a light on it. Like, it's actually not that scary when we really look at it. And I think it's the same with that fear. And once you lay that out, you go like, oh, this is a signal that my brain's giving me, but I can be objective. I can zoom out. I can take a look at it and be like, how does this decision serve my goals? And if going after the thing serves my ultimate thing I'm working towards, it's okay for it to be a little bit scary. That means it's worth doing. And so there's like exercises about examining your inner critic and where that voice of doubt comes from, and like the past experiences that inform it, and just trying to recognize that and how that relationship with fear works, so you can see it, you can like normalize it, I guess, because this is something we all experience. And then you can make an informed decision to go do the thing, and just realize that that worst case scenario is rarely something that should stop you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a Toastmaster. When I was training to be a Toastmaster, it was my first speech about false evidence appearing real, that it's fear is something that tries to keep us down. But as you were talking, there is a real fear that I think a lot of people have, and it would be interesting to get your feedback on this particular one. And that is fear of quitting their job and starting another job because they're afraid that they're going to starve and they're not going to have any money. So that is one that is, a lot of people have that one, or, you're in a bad job, but you don't want to quit it because the fear when it comes to your survival as far as economics.
Mm-hmm.
How would you approach that one?
Yeah, and that is one you have to take into consideration, right? Because there's a difference between like facing your fear and going and doing the thing and being reckless, right? Like there's a calculated risk that goes into these things. And when it comes to something like that, for example, I served on active duty for 13 years. I had great job security being in the military, benefits and housing and healthcare and all the things.
Right.
And then 3 years ago, I decided to leave and become a solo entrepreneur. Start
Okay,
giving
so that's a
speeches.
perfect example for
Yep.
you.
Start getting speeches right at Bush.
Yeah.
And it was scary. Like, but I did a few things before I made that decision. I looked at why I wanted to do this new thing, and that's where you get into like purpose. Because with the Thunderbirds, I was having that, that spark that you kind of mentioned when I would have these inspirational interactions with people, and I would see sharing some, whether it was just seeing us fly or sharing some little piece of wisdom with them and the positive impact that it was having on people. I was like, I think I could continue to do this and do it
Yeah.
like on a more personal, larger scale, face to face with speaking, through writing. And so I feel like I had a very clear purpose and I was very excited about it. But then I was like, all right, where are the gaps? Income gap? Like, how much money do I need to give myself enough runway to start booking speeches? Like, what do speeches book at? What's realistic? Like, how much is this going to cost? And so I spent the time to educate myself on all of that. And then skills and knowledge gaps. I, a shy introvert, yes, had media training with the Thunderbirds, had spoken at schools before, but I had never been on stage for an hour in front of a corporate audience. That is a different skill set.
Yeah.
So I looked at taking a course and getting training in that. And then the third part I always say is taking a step back and looking at your network. Like, who are the people in your life who can help close some of those gaps? And so I started telling people, hey, I'm going to leave and I'm going to go do this. I just need a little bit of wisdom from you. I started reaching out to my network, and a lot of these people I only sort of knew, I'd been introduced to them over the years at some point, and people showed up for me in the most incredible way. And so I bridged those gaps, and had I gotten to a spot where it was like, oh, this just isn't economically feasible. People don't pay speakers. They do pay speakers, but let's hypothetically say.
I know, you're saying hypothetical, right? Yeah, right.
I wouldn't have taken that leap because there wasn't that would have tipped the risk scale, but I had enough green lights that I was like, okay, I have some money in savings. I have VA disability. I have these things that can bridge this gap. I have a husband that has a job also. If it had just been me, the calculus would be different, right? And so it's laying all of that out there, though. It's been yes, I'm passionate about this thing. Yes, it gets me excited. But here are the logistical gaps. And if you can't close one of them now, keep your job, your day, your 9 to 5, and side hustle, work on building that to close that gap. And then there'll be a certain point where you all of a sudden realize that you can close all those gaps. And then you should have a lot more confidence to make that leap.
Oh my God, what a great answer.
I just furious.
Fantastic answer. And a personalized one too. That is amazing. That is amazing. Wow. Well, you've taken us through, yes, some really good stories here. There's a lot of aha moments in our conversation. And this one just capped it because, people have afraid of, but then if you go through it systematically and you put it on paper, and you just don't go blindly, right? You don't jump in. A lot of people feel, okay, I'm just going to jump in. You don't just jump in. You jump in when you have, you at least know how to swim. You know what I mean? And so that was a fantastic answer.
Thank you.
I loved it. I think it's the best one I've ever had on that question.
Yes, do it, but let's stack the odds in your favor, right? Like, yes, you got to go do the thing to overcome the fear, but
yeah, amazing.
be bold, not reckless.
Right. Yes, yes, yes. And be courageous. Right. I love that word. Like I said, be courageous, but not reckless. Right. Yes. Because if you're reckless, then you're going to be homeless. Can't feed your kids.
Right.
Maybe you have to go begging back for that job that you left. Right. Right. Yeah.
And it's fun to talk about the motivational and the inspirational and the mindset side of it, but you can't ignore the logistical side, right? You can't just live in a world of rainbows and pretend that you don't have a mortgage to pay. So you have to find the balance there.
Yeah. Yes. Beautiful, beautiful answer. All right. So let's talk about your book. It's called The Flip Side: How to Invert Your Perspective and Turn Fear into Your Superpower. Yeah. In our conversation today, you definitely talked about how you inverted your perspective and turned your fear into your superpower. So the only question I have left for you is, why did you write it? And what do you want the readers to walk away with after reading it?
Yeah. So when I first left and started speaking, I didn't know that I would write a book. I had, to be fair, I had 2 children's books that I had been working on. I was working on the first one at that point. And I just wanted to get this kid's picture book across the finish line and get it out there. It's about a little girl who wants to be a fighter pilot. And I just didn't feel like little girls, like 6, 7, 8-year-olds, were really seeing that as an option. And I just wanted to show them that it's possible. Like that, I loved doing that with the Thunderbirds. And so the book was a way to do that. So I made that happen. But writing a 650-word kids picture book, very different from writing a 70,000-word nonfiction memoir meets self-help type book. And so it took me about maybe like 8, 9 months of giving keynote speeches. I was constantly being asked if I had a book because everyone assumes anyone that gives speeches has a book.
It's true. Yeah.
But also,
Great place to sell them too.
it's
our
sure.
table.
For sure. Another, like, you're like, oh, another opportunity to add to the business. But I also was, getting on stage, talking for 45 minutes, talking for 60 minutes. And then I would do a Q&A very often afterwards. And people had so many questions. They were like, well, what about this? Well, what about being a woman in that world? Well, what about being afraid? And there was just such an appetite for more. And it was more than I could ever fit in a speech. And I knew I had so many stories that I hadn't told on a stage, because you really have time to tell maybe one main story and that few shorter ones. And I was like, maybe there is a book. Maybe I do have a book in me. And so we started looking at a proposal and how that world even worked. We're like, okay, I'm going to work with someone who's professional in this world, and we're going to put together a proposal and let's see what happens. And I ended up getting a publishing deal with Hachette, which is one of the big 5, and a deadline for a manuscript a handful of months in the future. And then I was like, yes, we're writing a book. And it has been amazing, hard, yes, but I think really healing for me to lay that all out there and explore so many things that, I never talked about to anyone, maybe briefly in passing, but to really organize my thoughts, put them on paper. And then the manuscript was due 2 years ago at this point. It is such a long process. It was a 3-year process. And as I got closer, and over this summer, I got to go to a sound studio and record the audiobook.
Right.
And reading my own words at performance level for hours a day, multiple days in a row, I was like, oh, some parts of this I really love, and some parts I'm really nervous to put out into the world. And then the publishing date, the release date, which was just a few weeks ago, is approaching, and it's 90% excited, 10% terrified, because I talk about all the gender stuff we talked about. I talk about going through a divorce. It's very vulnerable. And I always worry about am I doing other fighter pilots justice? Am I doing the military justice? Am I doing women in the military justice, right? Like, you feel like there's so much responsibility there. And the book has been so well received. Like,
I'm sure.
the messages in
You're
your
very well received here. You're just so natural at conversation.
it's been so incredible. Like, no regrets in writing the book, and woof, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to market it, I would say, is the hardest part. But it has been awesome. And just hear people being like, I just made a decision. And like, there's this promotion I always have wanted to go after. And every time it comes up, I talk myself out of it. And I just finished your book and I made a decision. Like, I'm going to say yes and go for it. It's like a tangible result. It's so cool.
Yes. You got to continue that year. Yes. Especially for things that scare you. You got to do that. Wow. Wow. So, Michelle, Mace, it's been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm always inspired when I can have a good conversation, just being intuitive by the questions that I ask. So I'm glad that I was able to, I think that I was able to pull out,
Yeah.
like some great stories out of you and leave a really indelible impression on our listening audience. So, kudos to you. I mean, yes, you definitely are brave. You're at the top 1% of women.
Well, I want to bring more women up with me, right? Like,
Exactly right. Yes,
reaching the hand
the
back.
top 1%. Yes, you're definitely a leader and not a follower. So, yeah, a book is great because what I'm left with from this conversation is, as you were talking, I somehow went to Michelle Obama, where she wrote the book Becoming, and in that book talked about, even though she was amazing, that very, very which successful lawyer,
Yeah.
married to a president, um because of, I guess, that the fact that she came from Chicago, the south side of Chicago. She always felt that she was not good enough and she had to become. And listening to your story with all the things that you've done, and you still felt that you weren't good enough. It's amazing that so many people feel that way.
Yes.
I'm reading a book right now and they said happiness is liking yourself. Right? It's as simple as that. It's liking yourself. And most people don't, right? Because they feel that they're not worthy. They can't see their self-worth. They can't see their worth, and they can't really embrace and like themselves. So I love your work. I love your book. And I'll definitely pick up a copy myself because I love reading and love listening to stories. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you very much for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind so you can transform your life. Today, we were talking about using fear as your superpower and transforming your mind on, feeling that you're not good enough, imposter syndrome, and, playing in women, playing in the man's world, and you know, having to always feel that you belong. So great conversation. Definitely go pick up a copy of Michelle's book. It's called, again, Fear is a Superpower: Reframe Risk and Step into Your Full Potential. It's really interesting that we ended up talking about the risk of stepping out on your own when you have a secure job. Love that again. So I know, right? I love that. I will have a brief synopsis of my conversation with Michelle on the show page, which is myhelps.us, and I will link out to her book. Now, Michelle, what is your website and social media handles so people can reach out to you?
Yeah, I try to keep it uniform across the board. So Instagram is at Mace_Curran. So _last name. And then my website is macecurran.com. And then I also put out quite a bit of like thought leadership type stuff on LinkedIn. And that's just Michelle Mace Curran. So across the board, pretty easy to find.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Yes. So I will link. Yeah, I saw that in your bio that you were a LinkedIn, what you call it?
Oh, the top voice badge. It just shows up. I don't know how you get it, but
Yeah, LinkedIn top voice. Yes, amazing. Yeah, I don't do a lot with LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram and Facebook, but yes, I will definitely post a clip to LinkedIn since you're on there a lot. All right, so listen, thanks for tuning in, Michelle. As you wrap up, any last words for the audience?
yeah, I realized I didn't answer the second half of your last question about like the one thing I want people to walk away from with the book. And the thing I always say to people is that the key to progress is having the courage to start something, even when you don't feel ready, but believing in yourself enough to know you will figure it out along the way.
Yes, the process. Start. Yes. Yes, I definitely agree. Start.
Yeah, action creates confidence.
Right. Yes. Um, MLK said, it's okay when you're going up a staircase. You only see the one staircase above you, but you never see the whole staircase, but just keep stepping, right?
Yep.
And you'll get there. So another way of saying it, right? Yes. Yeah. Definitely. That's what you want to do, feel the fear and do it anyway. Yes. Amazing. Yes. Amazing. All right. Well, listen, thanks again. Thanks, Michelle. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is one of the episodes that you definitely should share because there are so many nuggets in here for women, men, anybody that you know needs to be encouraged, right? In whatever they're doing. So amazing. So thanks again, Michelle. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, namaste.